There are places where dreams go to die. For me, that place was a football pitch. It's a cruel irony, isn't it? To find your heaven and your hell in the same patch of grass. They didn't just say I lacked skill. They said I lacked the soul for it. That some essential ingredient, some spark of instinct that separates a player from a person just kicking a ball, was missing from my DNA. And the worst part,
what kind of performance was that out there?
Awake, staring
you let
at
the whole team down.
Was that in my darkest moments, I believed them. I remember the precise sound of the ball hitting the crossbar that final day at the academy. Not a clean ping, but a dull, hollow thud. The sound of a door slamming shut. The coach didn't even look at me. He just turned to his assistant and said, loud enough for the whole world to hear, "A waste of a roster spot. You can train through pain. You can push through exhaustion. But how do you fight a verdict like that? It seeps into your bones, becomes a cold weight you carry everywhere." The nights after, they were the longest. I'd lie in bed and replay every mistake in perfect, torturous detail. The missed trap that led to a goal, the pass that went out of bounds, the shot that sailed so high it threatened the birds. It was a silent movie of failure on a constant loop behind my eyes. My father, trying to be kind, would say, "Maybe it's just not your sport, Riku." And that was the greatest betrayal of all, because for me, it wasn't a sport. It was the only one. It was the language I wanted to speak, the story I wanted to tell with my life. My training ground was a forgotten public field on the edge of town, its grass patchy and uneven, one of the goals bent at a sorrowful angle. It was a mirror of my own perceived worth. I'd run drills until my legs gave way, until the blisters on my feet bled through my socks. I was punishing myself, I think, punishing my body for its betrayal. I was trying to brute force my way into a grace that felt forever out of reach. The night I met Coach Jin, I was at my absolute lowest. I'd just fallen, hard, skidding across the muddy ground. I didn't get up. I just lay there, the cold mud seeping into my clothes, the rain mixing with the tears of sheer frustration on my face. I was done, truly, finally done. And then a voice, dry and quiet, cut through the downpour. Most people look up at the stars when they're feeling lost. I rolled over. There was an old man leaning under a broken umbrella, his face a road map of wrinkles. He wasn't looking at me with pity. It was more like curiosity. "The stars are too far away," I mumbled, pushing myself up. "They don't care."
It's all right, son. Everyone has off days. What matters is getting back up.
"Exactly," he said, a faint smile touching his lips. "But the grass remembers every footstep, every fall, every triumph. You're lying in a library of stories, boy, and you're only reading the tragedies." That was his first lesson. He didn't introduce himself for a week. He'd just be there, watching. Then he'd offer a single, cryptic comment. "You're trying to command the ball. You must ask it, or you see the player, but not the space he occupies. The space is your true opponent." When he finally agreed to train me, it was nothing I expected. The first thing he did was take away my sight, a thick, black blindfold. "Your eyes lie to you," he said, tying it firmly. "They show you what you expect to see. Your fear, your anxiety, it all lives in what you see. Now listen." And so, I learned to listen. I learned the different sound the ball made, rolling over short grass versus long grass. I learned to track my teammates by the rhythm of their breathing and the scuff of their boots. I learned to feel the shift in the air when someone moved past me. He called it Kankaku no shi, the sense of seeing. It wasn't about physical vision. It was about visualizing the entire field as a living, breathing entity inside your mind. We trained with a ball filled with sand. It was agonizingly heavy, a dead weight at my feet. When you can make this ball dance, Jin would say, a normal ball will feel like a feather on the wind. He was right. The first time I switched back, I felt like I could guide it with a thought. He never praised me, not directly. A simple grunt of approval was his highest accolade. He was building something in me far more important than skill, an unshakable core of self-belief that was independent of anyone else's opinion. He was teaching me that the boy who needed external validation had to die, so the man who trusted only his own inner compass could be born. The return was a tactical decision. My idea. Jin simply nodded. A samurai must return to the village that exiled him. Not for revenge, for resolution. The air in the old gymnasium was thick with the smell of sweat and ambition. And then, I saw him. Coach Sato. His eyes passed over me once, then flicked away with disinterest. Then, they snapped back. There was a flicker of, not recognition, but confusion. I didn't look like the broken boy he'd cast out. I stood differently. My shoulders were back. My gaze was steady. I was calm. The trial began. For 20 minutes, I did almost nothing. I moved, I positioned myself, but I rarely called for the ball. I was listening, relearning the rhythm of this kind of football, the loud, frantic, sight-based game they were all playing. I could feel the impatient stares, the smug looks. The ghost was back on his old haunt. Then it happened. A midfielder on my team, a flashy player with quick feet, was cornered by two defenders. In a panic, he fired a blind, hopeful pass across the field. It was too high, too fast, heading straight for the touchline. A lost cause, a waste of possession. But in my mind, it wasn't. I had been tracking the lazy, drifting run of our winger on the far side. I saw the path, not of the ball, but of the opportunity. I sprinted, not to where the ball was, but to the empty space where it would be after it took a deflection off the advertising board. The others stopped, expecting a throw-in. I calculated the angle, the pace. I met the ball as it cannoned back onto the field, and without a single touch to control it, I volleyed a first-time, sweeping cross. It wasn't a hopeful punt. It was a missile. It curved with impossible bend, avoiding every defender, and landed directly, softly, onto the winger's foot, 5 yards from goal. He couldn't miss. He didn't. The silence was profound. It was more shocking than any roar. You could hear a pin drop. Every single head turned to look at me. Not at the score. At me. The ghost. The waste of a roster spot. I just turned and jogged back to the center circle. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I had simply spoken my first word in a new language, and they had all heard it. From that moment, I was the puppeteer. The game slowed down for me while it sped up for everyone else. I was 3 steps ahead, not because I was faster, but because I was seeing the play before it was born. Passes were no longer just passes. They were keys unlocking doors. I was pulling strings they couldn't even see. The final against Northwood Academy. It was personal for everyone but me. For them, it was a grudge match. For me, it was a baptism. They were vicious. They targeted me with late tackles, with elbows in the ribs, with a constant stream of venomous trash talk. You're still a nobody. One-trick pony. We'll break you again." But their words, they just bounced off. They were trying to haunt a house that was no longer empty. The old Riku would have been rattled, angry. The new Riku just felt pity. They were fighting the ghost, not the man standing in front of them. When Kenji, our captain and striker, went down with a twisted ankle, the panic on our bench was a physical thing. It was a cloud of despair. Coach Sato was frozen, his head in his hands. The clock was our enemy. This was the narrative they all expected. The underdog's brave, but ultimately futile, effort. I walked to the sideline. The crowd was a roaring beast. I placed a hand on Kenji's shoulder as they carried him off. Then I stood in front of Coach Sato. His eyes were wide, frantic. He saw the same situation everyone else saw. Disaster. I kept my voice low, calm. "Move me to the center. Give me the ball." He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw not dismissal, but a desperate, fragile hope. "Trust me," I said. Those two words held the weight of every lonely night, every drop of sweat, every silent prayer on that rain-soaked field. He just gave one sharp, terrified nod. The free kick was 35 yards out, a long way, a low percentage shot. As I placed the ball on the turf, the world didn't just go quiet. It became hyper-focused. The screaming fans became a distant ocean. The glaring light softened. I could feel the texture of the ball under my fingertips. I could smell the grass. I could feel the slight, imperceptible incline of the pitch. This wasn't just a kick. This was the culmination. This was for every time I was told to sit down. For every time I was told I wasn't enough. This was for Coach Jin, somewhere in the shadows, watching. This was for the boy who cried in the mud, who refused to quit. I wasn't kicking a ball. I was releasing my entire story. The run-up was not rushed. It was a ceremony. My plant foot slammed down beside the ball, a firm anchor. My body coiled, then uncoiled. My striking foot connected not with a toe poke of hope, but with the sweet, perfect instep wrapped around the ball, imparting a furious, spinning energy. It soared. It was a white scar against the black night sky. It didn't just curve. It swerved. It danced. It defied physics. It moved as if it had a mind of its own, a conscious desire to find the one place the goalkeeper could not reach. The spin dragged it inward, then outward, then back in again, a serpentine flight path that ended with the most beautiful, most devastating sound a footballer can ever hear. The thwomp of a ball striking the back of the net, before the ropes strain and snap it back into the world. For a single heart-stopping second, there was absolute silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath, unable to process what it had just witnessed. Then, the eruption. It wasn't just noise. It was a seismic wave of pure, unadulterated joy and shock. It was a dam breaking. Teammates I barely knew swarmed me, their faces masks of disbelieving ecstasy. But through the chaos, my eyes found the sideline. Coach Sato was on his knees, not cheering, not celebrating. Just on his knees, his hands over his face. And high in the stands, leaning against a railing, was a single old man with a broken umbrella. He didn't smile. He simply nodded. Once. It was all I needed. They ask me now what it feels like to be a natural. I tell them the truth. There's no such thing. There is only love. A love so deep and so stubborn that you are willing to be humiliated for it, to bleed for it, to sacrifice everything for it. They gave up on me because they saw no talent. They were looking for a firework, a bright, loud, fleeting flash. They didn't understand. I wasn't a firework. I was a seed, and they buried me in the dark, thinking I was a stone. But a seed, given enough time and enough relentless, stubborn, unwavering belief, will always break through the earth to find the sun